What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the 20 Percenters, where we focus on what matters: health, wealth, relationships, and time. Brought to you by the New Year Network, the immersion event for leaders moving the needle in 2020. I have the opportunity of sitting down at AZ Cowork with Gelie, the founder of Networking Phoenix. And while that's a big part of your story, what we're going to really get into is your journey into energy work. We sat down for what I had on my calendar for half an hour, and it turned into an hour and a half, and we just really explored some really deep stuff. And I have the opportunity of getting a reading from you right here on the show today, so I'm super excited about that. Yeah. The modality that you use, and I'll let you explain it here in a second, is something I've never experienced before. So I'm super interested in the astrological elements and stuff like that you use as part of your process. Yeah. But your journey in entrepreneurship is really interesting, because I feel like a huge piece of your story is timing. And it was just doing the right thing at the right place at the right time. And you've gone through a handful of evolutions throughout the journey. So for those of the 20 percenters who don't know who you are, let's just start there. How did Networking AZ Phoenix come together?
Yeah, and that's a great summary, by the way. And the reason our meeting was probably an hour and a half, because I talk a lot. So, my entrepreneurial story started. Actually, I don't know when it officially started, but I'll tell you when I realized I was an entrepreneur. I think that the moment of my entrepreneurship awakening. So, I went to ASU. I majored in communications. I always had an interest in marketing. I got a real job after. When I graduated, and the economy wasn't in such a good place at the moment. Mm-hmm. But I was doing public relations for a local company, and, I lasted there maybe about 2 years and 3 months, and I was tired of it. And so economy got a little better, and I got a job in corporate America, which I thought, oh, this is going to be amazing. It's going to be great for my resume. I was working at JP.Morgan, doing internal employee communications for a global team. I mean, it just, on paper, it sounded amazing. My salary was pretty ridiculous for being only 24. Paid, 4 weeks of paid vacation, I think, right from the get-go. So I was working at 201 North Central, which is the tall building downtown, and I walked in the first day, and it was my heart just sank. It was just, without knowing, I just knew this was not the place for me. But it didn't matter, because, what's going on in my head is oh, this is good for your resume, you got to pay your dues, and yada, yada, blah, 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 all the stupid stuff that, your parents tell. I don't know who, my parents told me, or whatever I told myself. So I put myself through that torture for 2 years and 3 months. There's a pattern there. Apparently that's when I go crazy. But before I quit this job, I was about a year into it. I was really miserable, and I'm I can't do this anymore. I'm well, what am I going to do? I can't. And what I realized is, the job thing was difficult for me. Okay. It was difficult for me to be on somebody's schedule. It was difficult for me to be working with all these personalities that I felt were, I don't know how to say it, people I don't want to be around at all. Sure. Just put it in a nice way. Mm-hmm. And it was just not, it was a horrible environment. And so I'm okay, what am I going to do?
Can I stop you?
Of course.
Was the culture just toxic? Or?
The culture was toxic, yeah. But it was also I just didn't fit in. Mm-hmm. I felt like the people around me, some of the women, it was very cutthroat. And I was what do you try? I'm you want to be ahead? Go ahead. I didn't care. I'm I'm not trying to compete with you. Right. You want to do this? Go do this. But I felt it was, and I'm so supportive of women. I always have been. I've never had an issue with other women. I've never been that girl that you hear about, and I've never had friends like that.
Sure.
We've all been supportive. We all love each other. I have my core friends. So this was the first time in my life that I've experienced women that were not supportive.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Sure.
That didn't happen until post-college.
Yeah.
That tells you about like who I am and who I attract, though, right? And that's, again, this is me discovering.
Yeah.
And so I attracted this job because I wanted this job, but it doesn't necessarily mean it was the right place for me to be in.
Yeah.
So, but there's the whole process, you know, and again, I put myself through the torture of 2 years and 3 months. But this time when I realized it wasn't the job itself, it was jobs in general, I started to network to discover other opportunities, and not so much to find another job, but to find out what my options are. Because I'm in my, 24, 25, like I'm fairly young, you know, and this is, you know, before the internet was such a thing that you could just create something on the internet and, you know, like, create a community on Instagram, or I don't know if, you know, you can still do like that. Like it sounds simple, but I don't even know if that's a simple thing anyway. So I started networking, and I started meeting people and having conversations of like, okay, well, what do people do for a living? And I remember meeting this woman who was a pet and plant sitter. And when she told me that, I was like, I'm sorry, you do what for a living? You watch other people's pets and plants? Okay, come to find out, pet sitting is obviously a huge industry.
Yeah.
But back then, I didn't realize that, and I thought that was odd. And I remember thinking to myself, if this woman can create a business out of watching other people's pets, I can figure out how to make a business networking. Because what I missed in the story is that I fell in love with networking. The very first networking event I went to, I was like a kid in a candy store. Like, okay, you know that feeling, and I know you know this feeling, but like when you meet somebody incredible and all of a sudden like you start to fall in love and your endorphins are off the charts, and you're like, all of a sudden all the challenges you had in life seem to disappear. I mean, your mind's just like on a trip because you're literally full of dopamine. You're falling. That's how I feel when I'm in a room full of strangers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of people listening right now that are like, that's fucking crazy.
I know, right? They're like, and I know that. Like I talk about that. Like I'm freakishly in love with networking, and it's like a weird thing, but that's how I feel when I'm around strangers. I want to know who everybody is. I want to know their story, and not on a surface level. Like,
no, you're like genuinely interested.
Yeah. And so when I was going to these networking events, I would have these deep conversations with people. Like I don't do small talk. I mean, I do small talk, but my small talk is deep.
Yeah.
Like I want to look into your soul and see what you're about, because that's what's interesting to me. So that's what I was doing. And all of a sudden I had all these friends, like professional friends. And I was like, how do I do this for a living? Like, this is what I want to do. It's like all of a sudden I stumbled upon my passion, but how do you make money networking and meeting people, right? So taking it back to that story where that lady was the pet sitter, I'm like, if she figured it out, I could figure it out. Again, unbeknownst to me, pet sitting is an actual real industry. What I would try to create was extremely abstract. Yeah. Okay. And I know I have a feeling that you're comfortable with the word abstraction, but it's something you've had to come to. And I only know that because I read your soul chart, which we'll come back to. All right. Lots of abstraction in your chart. So where was I? Anyway, so I end up quitting my job by accident. What
do you mean you quit by accident?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, it was literally by accident, okay? So this is December of 2007. And by this point, I'm sorry, I keep skipping ahead. So at this time, I was married to a software engineer, all right? So one time I came home after a networking event, and I said to him, I was like, hey, you build websites for a living. I have this great idea. Why don't we create a calendar that lists all the different networking events in town in one calendar, right? Because this is 2007. We don't have Meetup. We don't have Facebook. We don't have anything. Right. That were like, if you wanted to know where networking events were, you had to have the secret Word document that was floating around Phoenix. Like, it was nuts. I got a hold of it, and I'm like, this is crazy. I need everyone to have this. Plus, I had my own that I was creating. And people kept asking me for it, so I kept sending these Word documents all the time, and I'm like, this is irritating. So I asked my now ex-husband to build it. He happens to be a brilliant software engineer. So he took my idea, and if you know anything about software engineers, they tinker like they don't stop. Yeah. They don't stop. So he took my idea, and he created this platform that was way ahead of its time. Okay, this is almost 12 years ago now, which is now known as Networking Phoenix. And in essence, what we created, but what he put into software is an event-centric community building platform. If I told you that 12 years ago, you'd be like, what?
Yeah, right.
Right? Even people listening now, like maybe they had to, like listen again. But the thing is, nowadays, everything is about community. Back then, I couldn't explain that. And a lot of days, people still think, they'll say, I'm a networking group. And it's like, I'm not a networking group. Sure, you can call me that, but we are a networking community, right? Because I promote all the networking groups.
Yes.
And the 40,000 people that are part of my membership, they're my community, right? And so I promote the entire community, and I send them to all the different groups, right? I'm not just trying to grab them for myself, which is a lot of what the individual entities would do, right?
Sure.
Because they're trying to get their own memberships. So I essentially created a space where they can all be promoted, where I can help entrepreneurs and small business owners find the networking events so they can find them online, but then actually go to these meetings and meet people face to face.
Yep.
So that's what him and I had created. Okay. So back to the accidental quitting story. So it was December 2007. My manager, who was actually my peer, but then it was the two of us, and then she got promoted to be my manager because, like one person needs to be managed. Like, you see my point in corporate America? I'm like, okay. So she kind of pulled me into the office and she said something about me working more hours. I don't know. It was like literally out of that cartoon where they're just like, rah, rah, rah. I'm like, I don't know what she's saying right now.
Yeah.
And I look at her and I open up my mouth and I have no idea what I'm about to say because I didn't expect this meeting at all. And I say, well, then I put my 3 weeks in. And then she's like, what? I'm like, what? And we just stare at each other. It was like, and my heart's like pounding. I was not
completely subconscious.
Completely, yeah. And so she says to me, Gelie, think about that. Like, are you sure? Maybe take that back. Like, we don't have to tell anyone and I'm like, no, if I said it, I mean it. Like, there's no, like the words fell out of my mouth, like, but I mean it, you know? And she's like, all right, well then, we'll blah, 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 blah. So my official quit date was like 3 weeks into, I don't remember what it was, but I remember I got off, I walked out of that room. I honestly believe to this day, biggest high of my life.
Really?
Really. And I've lived a lifetime since that moment.
Yeah.
Biggest high of my life. Like I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember how I felt. I remember what I was wearing. I remember I couldn't stop smiling. I was like teary. I was like, I freed myself.
Wow.
In that moment, I did something for myself that I didn't think I could do because I was scared of quitting. My identity was tied into that. I went to school for this job. I was working at JP Morgan. I had a crazy high, well, not crazy high salary, but for my age,
for 20,
I had health benefits. Like I had a home. I had 2 homes.
Yeah.
Like I had all the things that we aspire to have, and the silly social standards, which are so irrelevant to me at this point. Right. And I just quit to go network. Yeah. So you can imagine my resignation letter. I wrote this beautiful, not resignation, but it was like a goodbye letter, you know, and like nobody responded. It was like crickets. They were like, just like, they all love me now. Now everyone wants to be my friend, you know, like, but it's, yeah, it was different times back then. So I quit. So December 1st, we launched the website. And if you recall what happened on December 1st, the economy crashes and people just go nuts and everybody starts landing on my website. So it was the perfect storm. I was at the perfect place at the perfect time by accident.
With the perfect resource.
With a perfect resource. Yep. Right? I mean, I had no idea this was going to happen, but, and nothing's really by accident, but more so, I didn't plan this. I could have not foreseen this. All I was doing is following my desires, my heart. Like, I don't want to sound cheesy about it, but that's literally what it was.
You're letting your intuition lead the way.
Yeah. I was, and I'm highly intuitive. So I was letting my intuition lead the way. And it was like, I felt like I had discovered the secret to life. Like, literally, and I wanted to tell everyone I wanted everyone to quit their jobs. Now, which I don't tell people anymore. Although when I walked in here, one of my former clients, he's like, yeah, I quit that company. And I'm like, yes. And he's like, are you sure that's a good thing? I'm like, yes, anytime anybody quits their job, it's a wonderful thing.
Well, that was a running joke with 20 percenters for quite some time in the very beginning. We had a lot of people as we were formalizing the group and starting to put some structure behind it. And it's like, join 20 percenters and quit your job. Join 20 percenters and quit your job. That was like the narrative for like 5 or 6 people, 6 months straight. Yeah. It was crazy. But at the same time, now they're off and running. They're happy. They're fulfilled. And they're living. They're walking in their purpose. Yeah. So,
and that's important. And that's important. And that's, one of the things that I went through it myself, and that's something I help other people do. And again, when we kind of transition into like, how my life's just evolved, like that is one of my biggest purposes, and so it is yours also.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, I'm not shocked by that. But, so anyway, so I quit my job, I launched the website, and it was just, I couldn't keep up with it. People were coming at me. We were profitable pretty much from the beginning. I came up with this recurring revenue model, okay, which now again is a thing. Communities and recurring revenue is such a thing now, but back then nobody was talking about it. This was all intuitive. I'm like, my question to myself was, how do I make money while I sleep?
Yeah,
that was literally what I asked myself, and the only thing I had to compare to back then was, do you remember the Netflix DVDs? Okay, yeah. So I was like, how do I create this model for like $10 a month where people just subscribe to it and then just pay me, and so that's what I did. I came up with something called the Networking Passport, and it allows people to attend all the Networking Passport sponsored events per month. So there's about 30 events, 20 to 30, between 20 and 40 actually, depends on the month. I mean, there's, depends how many events are happening. But, and then I went and created all those, the relationships, for them to give me tickets. And the reason they would give me tickets is because it's just, I promote them.
Yep.
And it gets butts and seats. I mean, there's a million reasons why they would give me free tickets. So, but again, I came up with all of that. And I remember explaining it to my now ex-husband, and he said to me, I don't get it. He's like, but you've been spot on with a lot of this. So if you're telling me this is going to work, then we'll make it happen. And he built it out, in the software world, and we launched it, and it was a hit. Yeah. And the recurring revenue, I mean, again, it's a thing. It's a thing. And let me tell you something, I didn't even realize how amazing of a thing it was until him and I split up, which was about 4 years ago. And, going through a divorce is not cheap. Right. And on top of all of that, I had health issues that just came up. I mean, there was just so much stress. And now I'm a single mom. And I mean, there's just so much going on. And I had severe adrenal fatigue. And I literally had to put myself on bed rest for a good chunk of the year. Yeah. And it was then that I realized how amazing this recurring revenue thing is that I created. Yeah. So I'm cutting out so many pieces, obviously. I mean, we don't have an hour and a half. I mean, I could talk for hours, but that was a huge piece of my entrepreneurial journey, which is not anywhere near over, because the thing about this platform is it's unique. I own it. I bought them out. And I get requests for it all over the world. And now here's the thing. I spun it up here in the networking vertical, but it is essentially, it's an event-centric community building platform, which could be put into any vertical. Right. So networking, spiritual, yoga. I mean, how many yoga events are there on a daily basis? Yeah. I mean, you can repurpose that for... Yeah. Yep. And I get requests for it all over the world. So that's my personal next step in the entrepreneurial journey of with this company and where I'm going with it. Sure.
Where does it's not even a transition. It's like, where does the parallel of energy work come in? When did you discover that not only were you letting your intuition lead the way, but you are in fact an intuitive?
Right. So, you know what? I've actually always known that, and I thought everybody else was like me.
Not true.
No, it took me a while to realize that. It was about in high school when I realized that other people don't actually see what I see. Sure. Right. So I see things, I hear things, I feel things, and I thought it was like I literally thought everybody was like me. How do you know people are different? Right. And it was about in high school that I'm like, no, I think there's something to this. Like, not everyone's like this. So I've always had it, but building this company, and people that have built a company from nothing, I'm sure can relate, but I gave it everything I had, and when I had nothing, I gave it everything I had 100 more times. Yeah. I lost myself. I have no idea who I was anymore. I was a very masculine version of myself. Sure. Because I had to go, and there was no emotion. I had to shut down on so many different levels just to function and get through the day. Yeah. It was extremely traumatic. I've actually blocked out a lot of it. Like, I mean, that's, you're like, oh, yeah, I know a guy you can see.
Oh, yeah.
Just kidding. But, kidding, not kidding. But it was an extremely painful thing for me to go through. And when the divorce came about, it literally life brought me to the floor. Like, all I could do was lay on the floor and listen to music. Like, I couldn't even get up off the floor. I mean, my adrenal fatigue was so bad. I did a test for it with my doctor, and he's like, so what do you do? Get out of bed and lay on the floor? I'm like, that's actually exactly what I do. He's like, because that's what your blood work shows. He's like, you get up and you literally fall right back down. And I'm like, yeah, no, like I'd get dizzy, like I couldn't get up. So it was like literally life brought me to the floor, and I'm like, I can't live like this, and I need to go through all the healing. And I mean, it wasn't even necessarily conscious thoughts. I couldn't have conscious thoughts back then. I was so fuzzy in my head. But I believe that when we plan our lives, and I do believe we plan our lives, we put these like safe proof, interactions or people in our lives, and one of those people for me was my dear friend Katie, who does energy work, gateway healing. It's a type of breath work.
Okay.
And I found her in Meetup. A year or 2 years before I left my husband, and but I never went to one of her events. And finally, there was one point in time where I saw her email, and I'm like, I'm gonna go. And so I went to her event, and I met her, and I had this instant connection. I mean, it was just, there was no thinking. It was instant. Still took a few more months to connect, but when we finally connected, she got me on her table. I had no idea what I was in for. And, but again, breath work. Okay. And now I'm like in love and obsessed with breath work.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a high, like nothing else.
You do Wim Hof and all that stuff?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm like, once I discovered it, I needed to try all of them. I'm like, I want all of them.
DMT breathing is the next best thing without any exogenous, mushrooms or anything like that to really tap into that subconscious thing. Yeah. And we actually did a workshop at the gym where we had some practitioners come in and walk us through and get us into that DMT state, and just watching people weep and cry and it's like this rapid fire. They talk about when you run a marathon, you experience literally every single emotion along the way. Yeah. Especially in your first one. Yeah. Because you just have that much time by yourself. Yeah. Right. And when you get into that DMT breathing, that state, it's getting there and riding that roller coaster really, really fast. So that's why it's kind of that on a subconscious level, why it's so impactful. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I had no idea what I was about to get myself into, which is the story of my life. I'm actually somebody who loves adventure, and I prefer not to know what I'm getting myself into. Sure. And I constantly place myself in situations like that. And Bali was one of them, which was like my latest. The less I know, the better for me. I want to be surprised. I want to be shocked. I want to feel alive. And so I get on her table, and I had just gone through 2 breakups at the time, and I was thinking that's what it was going to be about. And we didn't even touch not we, but like me breathing. It was all that childhood trauma and all that crap that was just like that I thought I didn't even realize was still there. That's what came out. And and that stuff is heavy.
When you were going through this process, did you not only discover that there were things lingering that you thought you were over, but also did you start connecting dots that were completely isolated incidents that have everything to do with that together in combination create a barrier that you didn't know had anything to do with each other?
I think it gave me clarity to like where, like you said, that different things happen and you don't really connect them, but all of a sudden I was like it's like a cloak is just lifted and you're like, oh, I see how it's connected.
Yes.
Oh, I see oh, wow. Oh,
yeah.
God, that sucks.
Yeah.
This is what I'm living with. Yeah. So once I realized that, and I'm somebody who's highly conscious, highly aware, and highly connected. And by the way, I want to say that, okay, again, I assumed everyone lays on her table and has this experience. And she's like, Gelie, no. She's like, you're special. Yeah. She's like, you're very connected and you're very gifted. So for me, the moment I lay and start, it's like, boom, I just go right into it, And, I didn't, again, that was my first experience, so I didn't know that, but so a few more sessions with her, and then I worked with another lady up in Sedona. I went to see her a few more times. Anahata, I don't know if you know Anahata. She's wonderful. And then I did some Wim Hof breathing with Jesse. I connected you to Jesse. Yeah. I don't know if you guys had a chance to chat.
We haven't. Max has actually been down there though.
Oh, awesome.
Over to
their studio.
Optimize.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, you know, I've made my rounds. You know, like anyone in this town that's like it's not such a big community here, right? Like we all get to know each other. So, but that's how my like not transition, but like open, like discovery of myself and like really understanding who I am and what my true purpose is and what am I doing? You know, is it really networking? And I even say when I talk about networking, I'm like, guys, it's like I use the word networking because that's like a nice fluffy word.
Sure.
But what I really do is I connect people. I connect them to each other. I connect them to themselves. I guide them. And that's a lot like the soul work that I do. I'm like, what people are like, what's your title? I'm like, I don't know, what, soul guide? I'm like, I don't like titles are like, I don't know, but people, you know, need something a little tangible to understand what it is that you do.
Sure.
How you can help them. And it's guide. I guide people. I don't even like to use the word mentor because a lot of times it's not me mentoring. It's just because it's so easy for me to see what their next step needs to be. I can literally see it. And so I said to myself, once I realized how traumatized I am from my life, and by the way, my soul destiny is to get really, really traumatized. Like we all have different soul destiny. When I read mine, I was like, oh, I guess I'm living it out. There's a purpose to it, though. It's like I have to get through all these traumas because I'm being prepped for a very spiritual lifetime, next lifetime. So this is one of my prep lifetimes. But it comes with a lot of pain. And so I had to deal with it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take every single wound, every single pain, every single thing that I'm conscious of and literally put it on the table. And I'm going to go through and heal it one by one. One by one. Just heal it. We're just going to heal it, you know, and that's okay. And that's the journey that I've been on for the last few years, which brought me to this incredible modality of decoding people's soul charts. So the premise with that is that, now I'll just dive right into it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I told you I can talk, right? This is all. It's my fault. It takes long, but
if I can get through a show in 10 questions or less, like that's a win.
Okay, good.
We're doing good.
Good. So the premise of this particular work is that before you come into each lifetime, your soul actually chooses what it wants to experience and what it wants to work through. Okay. So you choose your own karma. Right. Okay. So this isn't like, oh, karma's chasing you and it's, you know, like you're going to burn if you burn, but maybe actually, I don't know. But you get to choose your own karma and what you want to experience. You choose your talents, you choose your gifts, and ultimately your soul destiny. Most of us don't reach our soul destiny, right? That's why we have to keep coming back and trying and trying.
Wow.
Right. Okay. But as you know, like right now, consciousness is lifting for all of us. So we are in a really good space of actually making progress and making movement collectively and individually. Sure. So when your soul plans this out, what happens is there are a few ancient languages that are the pure vibration of God, and Hebrew is one of them. Okay. So we take the name that's on your birth certificate, right? That's why I confirmed with you today. Is this on your, because I'm telling you, people have told me this name is on my birth certificate. I'm like, double check. And they double check and they're like, oh my God, that's not the name. Okay. I'm like, it has to be the name on your birth certificate.
Your given name.
Your given name. We take the phonetic sounds and we convert them into Hebrew sounds, which gives us the pure vibration of you.
Okay.
Right. And within that, we decode the like what your soul has planned to experience.
Sure. I guess I have to ask, what did my chart say?
So, let's look at. Let me pull it over. Actually, I probably don't even need to look at it, but I want to show it to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had it. I mean, I spent a good time on it this morning, but
oh shit, okay.
This is what I like that reaction. But this is what it looks like, and I don't know if
I'll screenshot this and get it up there for you guys.
Okay, perfect. But okay, so see, your name is up here, and like I said, we convert it into the Hebrew sounds, and then we go this way through the chart, and it basically gives me numbers. So this is it's numerology, but it's not the numerology that you're like that you would think. Like, it's not American numerology. This is a little bit different.
Okay.
And it gives us different numbers associated with each point on the star. And this is shaped in the Star of David. And just so you know, like the Star of David, I mean, this is so much more ancient than the Star of David.
Right.
But the triangles are gateway points, like energetic gateway points.
Okay.
And so the one pointing down is all your physical stuff, right? So you see physical karma, physical talents, and physical goals. Okay. And for the first 35 years of your life, this is pretty much where you've lived. And this is pretty much what you've experienced. And most people are stuck in their karma because this is what we come in with. This is the very first thing we experience is our karma. Past 35, which you are at this beautiful age, you actually start, all the spiritual triangles start to activate. So your spiritual karma comes into play, your talents, your goals, and again, ultimately through your entire lifetime here, you're trying to reach your soul destiny. Okay, so that's how this particular modality works. So for you,
just to clarify, 35 is a critical year for me, or is that
for everyone?
A principle? Okay,
for everyone, yeah. So for me too. So for instance, I chose to leave my marriage when I was 32, I believe. So a little bit, before 35, but it's I actually find that it varies a little bit. 35 is the magic number, but like the core of my demographic is females between 32 and 37. Okay. Because they're in the transitional. They're in the transition, and all of a sudden things that worked before don't work anymore. They feel like they're spinning out, even if they're in good marriages or have good, like they're just like life isn't working anymore. Yeah. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's because all this other stuff is now getting activated, and they don't have their footing on it. Okay. So I tell them all, I'm like, if you feel spun out, you're on track. This is a good thing. Okay. Now for you, you've done a lot of work. So I don't know where that puts you in a sense of like you're not just waking up today and you're looking at this, I should be hitting my spiritual karma, but for most men, like they tend to be a little bit like usually 40, I think is the age when they tend to like, and maybe you've experienced this because you probably work with men too, but anyway, so 35, there we go. But so diving into your chart, you're like, tell me all of this. Okay. So let me tell you. So I found your soul destiny to be interesting. So I want to tell you with that. I've done a lot of these charts and I don't see this soul destiny very often. But it's a lot about abstraction, which is why I, used that word earlier, which is interesting. But okay, so let me kind of read this. I made myself notes, but through all the experiences of of your entire chart, you bring yourself up to a place of opening up your mind to acknowledging the multidimensional nature of your existence. And there are many worlds and many levels of truth of existence, and this is acknowledged abstraction. So for you, it's like understanding all the different moving pieces that are super abstract. For whatever reason, like that's what you need to leave this lifetime with, is like knowing all the different elements and the different ways you can experience life. Yeah. It almost feels like, and so starting out like in the physical space, this is probably going to be one that you're the most familiar with because that's just kind of most of what most of us are familiar with. And I'm still working through my karma. Yeah. It sucks. My karma isn't good. But with 6/6, it's interesting because look, you've got 6/6, and the 6/6 is actually a very, very creative number, like super creative number, but you have it in your negative aspects, which is the karma or the negative aspects. So what you want to do with your karma, you actually want to work through it and transmute it. Okay. So when you transmute the karma, it becomes positive. So the opposite of creative is very blocked. So I don't know if you've experienced blockages through your life. And again, remember, we don't know where we're picking up at which point in the chart. So you may have worked through it. You may have stuck points. I don't know, but you have the same number in both of your karmas, which is like a lot of rigid. Like it's a very rigid feeling, you know. But what trips me out is that your physical goals is 6/6. So it's like you're trying so hard to be creative and fluid and focused, but you've got two things that are like pulling you back. Yeah. So there's this interesting. I want to, but I'm stuck. I want to, but I'm stuck. But here's where it gets even more interesting. in your physical talents, you have a 9-9, this is a dragon symbol, by the way. This is the most powerful number in this chart. You don't just have 1 9, you have 2 9s. Okay. And it basically there's nothing you can't do. There's nothing you can't accomplish. So this isn't me like getting to know you. I'm like, oh, Michael, like, I believe in you. I'm like looking at your chart and I'm like, if you have a bad day, I may feel sorry for you for 2 seconds.
Sure.
But like, there's nothing you can't do. You know, like literally, like people with 9s, like you can just
chart your own course.
Right. And you probably know this to be true about yourself. I mean, it's again, I made myself some notes, but it's the most powerful number in the system. You can do anything you want to do. You're unstoppable. You are the power of God incarnate. Like this is some heavy, like you've got responsibility. You've got shit to do. You know, like you weren't just given this for no reason, right?
Yeah.
So, and the 9-9, there are catalytic energies, which help fulfill the rest of your chart. So if you had issues with your physical karma and you're looking at me, you're like, well, Gelie, I don't really feel stuck. That's because of your 9s. And I don't know, because like you're more than welcome to give me feedback in a second. I just kind of wanted to give you the overview. But
totally.
The 9s will pretty much cut through this.
Okay.
And not everyone gets this. A lot of people will have karma and they'll have a number here that doesn't help it.
Right.
And then they're really stuck.
Sure. Okay.
So there's a lot more, but like, I don't know, just like tell me like.
No, I mean, I want to understand like how physical karma manifests, like what's tangible about that, so I can contextualize it a little bit.
That is so interesting you say that, because right here, I can read what it says. Tremendous rigidity of expression. You said you get excited about something, but need guaranteed success before engaging with it. You need tangibility. So, like you just said that before I even said that.
I have not looked at this, by the way.
Yeah, tougher to take risks with intangible versus tangible. Like you literally just asked me for something tangible, and this is exactly what it says.
Funny story. I have like this rule of 3. Like before I take action on an idea, right? I going off on my own and opening the gym. You know, I had to hear it from 3 people who I perceive to be insightful, trustworthy, and experienced, right? And then they're like, hey, you should open your own gym. Hey, you should open your own gym. I heard that from those 3 people at that time. And then magically the stars aligned, and then my investor showed up, and then boom, we're off to the races. But like things like that, the 20%ers, this podcast, all of that kind of lines up with that rule of 3. Yeah. You know, hey, you should start a podcast. Hey, you should start a networking group. Hey, you know, you should start getting paid for that networking group. Like boom, 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 boom. You know, so like that's but you know, like my group, the 20%ers, my leaders forum was in existence for free for 2.5 years. You know, so like I just, that's that tangible push.
It is,
that makes sense.
It's insufficient ability to. Sorry, I don't like to use the words from the book, because where I learned this from. So but the words that they use is insufficient ability to take risks,
which is, I think, interesting from the standpoint that a lot of where I'm at in life now is the result of taking risks.
Absolutely.
So is that like the dragon cutting through this shit? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely. Because your physical talent is what it helps you get through your karma, and it feeds your physical goals.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
So, but in essence, it's exactly what you just said. Like you needed 3 people. You know, that's your rule of 3, and that's exactly what it says. Is that you need proof or something before you take a risk. You need something tangible.
Yeah, proof of concept.
And that's what you said. Like, how does it show up in life? That's exactly how it shows up.
Okay.
So this is stemming from your karma.
Okay.
The other one is lack of focus, which can lead to anger. Tendency towards addiction. I mean, these are just some of the things that come with the 6s.
Sure.
You know.
Well, I mean, I think the word addiction or the manifestation of addiction shows up differently for all of us. Some people it's drugs and alcohol. Other people, it can be seen in a more positive platform. Like for me, I guess that shows up in fitness. Like my day is not right if I do not train.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's part of your 9-9.
Okay.
Too. It's such a powerful number that it's actually very hard in the physical body. So my guess is not guess, but like you just said it, like you need that physical, whatever you get from it, then you can't function. And that does stem from the 9-9.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then working our way around the spiritual talents.
Yeah, so working our way around. So the spiritual talent, so this is a gift that you have. And so I love this number. So the 16 is all about taking the intangible, like spirituality and bringing it to groups of people. The 7 is a group of, I know, shocking, right? Shocking.
Illie's like, holy shit.
She's like, I want mine next. Or I don't. I don't know, but okay, so my notes here, ability to share spiritual energies in groups, where you magnetically draw people in by opening your heart. So the 7 is all about opening your heart, and that's how people get drawn to you.
Yeah.
You know, and then your ability to share things with them. So this is what you're really, really good at. Like this is just your natural talent. And my guess is when you open yourself up, people just gravitate towards you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's interesting because I was just having a conversation with Illy. She's I've been working with her and mentoring her in her journey for the better part of the last year. But at the same time, you know, because of what she does for me as my assistant, she also gets to watch me. She vicariously experiences my growth, you know, and watching like these blocks and all this crazy shit show up, you know. And I think, you know, what this speaks to in a conversation I was having with her a couple of weeks ago is, you know, part of what makes me good at what I do is being willing to not only charge you with great expectations, but also you get to watch me try and fail and succeed and try and fail and succeed and try, you know, not necessarily in that order, but like I'm also on my journey. I'm not like at the top of the mountain speaking down to you.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah. So that resonates.
Yeah.
And then so are we good there? I don't want to rush this process. I'm kind of like enjoying this shit.
No. Yeah, we're good. I mean, and you know, I mean, we could break it down a little bit further again, but you know, as I was taking notes, like if we were to do a full reading, it would take about an hour, and we would have like a really full, deep conversation, which we totally can't offline. But you know, I thought for this, you would just kind of do a mini one. But
so it says here, one of your notes for this is under spiritual talents. Or is that physical talent?
No, this is actually for 9-9. Yeah, I'm sorry. We should have spent more time on the 9-9 because this.
Well, it says excellent channels and mediums. Because
Yeah.
I don't see I look at Max, who's like my energy guy, right? Not just my videographer, but he like walks in a room. You know, we'll leave an interaction and be like, man, like the energy was really good, or the energy was like off, or whatever. But like he speaks that language. I don't necessarily like.
You don't speak the language.
I don't feel myself to have that as a talent.
Yeah. So you're blocked. Remember, you haven't worked at your karma. Like I'd love to tell you that you've worked at your karma.
Sure.
But if you're not feeling it, it's because of your blockages.
Okay.
You know, and like I said, you've got some severe blockages, and you're working through them. So it's not, you know, but like, I mean, I'll tell you, the one other chart that I read. And a lot of these, like majority of them resonate with people, but there's always, you know, you're always going to get one person who says, this sounds nothing like me.
Oh,
and
sure.
I mean, with any, and I remember I looked at this guy's chart and I'm like, oh, how am I going to do this? He had 2 6s. He was so blocked. And I'm like, how do you speak to somebody that's so blocked? Yeah. You know what I mean? So, and he was like, that doesn't sound like me at all. And I'm like, you know what you can do, But my point is I think a lot of times when you're like, you don't know where you're stuck. Like for me, just to give you an analogy, for me, I have these, and I tell people this, we all have these invisible patterns that we don't even know what they are until we trip on them. And sometimes we have to trip over them like 10 times to be like, what is that? And it's like, oh, and then it becomes a conscious thing in your mind. So if you have blockages that you're not even conscious of, like you have no idea what I'm talking about right now, you know? So this is more for you to be aware of, but like I said, with you being the age that you are, I don't think you've worked through all of your karma as much work as you've done. You know, I mean, you're probably way ahead.
Right.
But that is something to know because you do have, so my guess is you have something about you that where you can feel and you express, but it's going to be different than Max.
Yeah.
And it's going to be different now than what it's going to be in 10 years.
Okay. Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So just know that you have this particular ability within you. How that shows up, you don't, because the thing is, the way that you resonate with people, and you have another high, like a 7-7, another people number here. The way you show up for people and what you need to do for people, you need to do as Michael, not as Max, not as Gelie, right? Because whoever's going to resonate with you speaks your language. So you may never speak energy language.
Sure. Yep.
But you're gonna get it and channel it in a very different way. So I already see you doing this. You're just not doing it in the way that you probably perceive you should or could be doing it.
Got it. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Absolutely.
Because to me, you clearly do it. Now, are you blocked now? I don't know. I mean, this is like you know, and we're on the spot. Like I'm not laying there, like really digging through, which I do when I do a reading. Like I'll literally, I can dissect the energies and, you know, go deeper into it. But,
interesting.
Yeah. But this is, you've got this for the rest of your life.
Got
so
it.
there's a lot more coming, but you're also, peacemaker, strength and stability, and a brilliant healer. So you've got healing energy, coming through you as well.
Okay.
Just again, and then this is your talent. Like I said, this isn't me giving you like rah. Like I think you're so great. This is like literally.
Right. If this was something else, it'd be a totally different conversation.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So and then where do the spiritual talents? Oh, we
talked about that. So if we're looking at your physical, so I kind of mentioned your physical goals before, but it's the opposite of your physical karma and spiritual karma. You want to achieve creativity to become focused and creative. Like you really do want to create. Like this is what gets you out of bed in the morning.
Right.
You want to create. Like you're doing this podcast because like you're creating. Like the group was your creation. The gym was your that's what gets you out of bed in the morning. And that's what you've been experiencing in your physical realm. Now you're going to start experiencing things in your spiritual realm too, if you haven't already. And so the spiritual realm, so with the 7-7 number is, again, think of this is what gets me out of bed in the morning, is to learn to magnetically draw people to yourself just by opening up your heart. And you're very powerful. So again, just by being you and doing things from the right place, people are drawn to you. They're drawn to you, and you help heal them. Yeah.
That's interesting because I had a conversation a couple of years ago with a coach I was working with, and he was asking about creating my one pager for speaking, right? And as we dissected and went through a couple of exercises to figure out how to create this one-liner, what came of that conversation is I help people that are in transition, and I guess in the verbiage that we're using here, help them heal so that they can move on to the next thing. And I've always described my interaction with people as I mentor them, bring them on as coaches or whatever. You know, it's my gym, my physical space, my presence in their life is not a forever place. Like this is not for you your life doesn't stop here, you know, like when it's time to move on and you'll know before I know, but you need to listen to that so that you don't try to stay here too long, is to give you whatever it is that you need for as long as you need to get it, and then help you move into that next phase, you know, so that's incredibly interesting. And prior to this podcast, we've only spoken for 90 minutes.
That's
really. It. and you read my book. So yeah, no, this is all, I want to, you know, when we get off the show, we'll sit down and do like a real reading and dive all into this stuff. But no, this is extremely powerful. But this is the introspection that I wish everybody would at least entertain. You know, because whether, you know, depending on where your faith lies or what your belief system is, there is something to all of this.
Oh yeah.
And at the very least, the it'll create a conversation that'll force you to ask some really challenging questions, and it's in the answers to those questions that you really discover who you are and what you're about. You know, like you talked about, your favorite chapter in Inner Circle was chapter 7 about baggage.
Oh yeah,
You know?
wow, I love baggage.
And you know, you have to become aware. You have to acknowledge. Like those two things need to take place first before you can move into the process of unlearning and deciding that the thing that helped you get here no longer serves you.
Oh yeah.
And you have to clear that to make room for whatever the next tool you need to acquire is, so that you can move to the next place. And I think a lot of what you're talking about, you know, in my case specifically, the things that are inhibiting me is I just haven't come to yet in my physical karma and the deep work that I've been working through. So I'm super interested to see like what that manifests as.
Yeah.
You know, especially moving into this immersion training that I'm going through with NLP this weekend. Can't wait to see what the fuck shows up there.
Yeah.
You know, especially going in there. Because we had Gelie on the show a couple of weeks ago. She's an intuitive clairvoyant. And she was talking about, from a 30,000 foot view, the collective standpoint that this year in general for the universe has been a transitional year that is preparing us as a collective for the challenges and opportunities to come in 2020. Like, I feel like this kind of like in a more specific fashion kind of speaks to that as well, you know? Yeah.
Well, I mean, we are in an awakening moment on Earth.
Yeah.
Like, this is a very unique time on Earth as a collective energy.
Sure.
Whereas before, you know, Earth in general is very dense energy here.
Yeah.
It's fear-based. And so a lot of our, you know, our ancestors, even my parents, grandparents, like we don't have to go to our ancestors. I mean, they lived in a very different energetic world, you know, whereas a lot of us that are coming in now, and have been coming in, we are here to raise all of that, you know, and change the energy, and it's happening.
Yeah.
And there's this shift happening, and so there's just, it creates harmony, but it creates chaos. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening, you know, and so there are days where, and I'm such an intuitive, there are days where I'm like, what am I? And I feel everything. I don't need to run a marathon to feel every feeling, okay? In fact, when I run marathons, I like the high I get from not feeling the feelings.
Sure.
To me, it's actually an opposite effect because I feel my feelings every moment of the day. I don't know if you know what that feels like, but that's my life.
No.
And so the way I explain this to people, imagine if most people's feelings are like an 8-box crayon set. Mine is like a 64 or like 164. Like I feel and I see it. I feel it, I see it, I experience it, and I live it, and I'm just like, oh my God, I didn't get out of my head. How do I get out of my head? So I need to do, like, for me, exercise gets me out of my head. And I don't like to do exercises that keep me in my head. So it actually, you know, like for me, like I've had to learn that I'm like, why are some things I resonate with when I exercise and some things I just don't? And I realized because I'm actually trying to put myself in a different place mentally when I exercise. So again, we're all built a little bit differently, you know, and we all have like different needs and different thoughts. But I mean, so I think where do you want to go from here? You know? I know, right?
No, it's, but also like, let's come back to this 35 thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because I just finished reading Think and Grow Rich for the 3rd time.
Okay.
And you know, it was written in the 30s for men, about men, right? So if you can get, you know, for women that haven't read it or aren't familiar with Napoleon Hill's work, if you can get past the context of the period with which it was written, the principles are pretty universal.
Yeah.
So just disclaimer. But he talks about this specific window in Think and Grow Rich. He uses the age of 40. That's when in terms of business and wealth accumulation, those are your growth years. Because for a number of factors, one of the things that he talks about very specifically was the wasted sexual energy that actually takes away, the mismanaged sexual energy that takes away from your ability to grow wealth, right? And so to put that into context, through your 20s and 30s, sowing your wild oats and just being out there and frivolous and promiscuous and all that stuff, as opposed to sitting down with yourself, identifying your goals, and moving in that way, and using the endorphins and all the positive things that are associated with sexual activity as a way to elevate, not a way to distract. But that's also a very interesting correlation in a book that carries so much weight in the entrepreneur world, that specific thing at between 35 and 40 in this case falls on this chart as well. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a magical age for many reasons. But for me, it's been, when I came across this modality and I read it and I read all about it, and it was like I was obsessed. It's like it's not like I was learning it, it's like I was remembering it.
Yeah.
It's
sure.
like this is, and by the way, I don't think this is my end all be all. I mean, I do a lot in the spiritual work. Like one of the things I did last year over Thanksgiving, I went to a spiritual university for an entire week, and we were channeling for 7 days straight, pretty much the entire.
Jesus.
I mean, it was intense, and I thought it was going to be, this is going to be fun, and I mean it was, but it was so much work. Like my third eye, I've never experienced pain. There was pain here.
Yeah,
it hurt because I had to use it so much. I mean, you're constantly being asked to, you're connecting, you're looking, and it was just, my point is, I feel like that there's so much more to where this journey is going to lead me. This is just the beginning, but this is something that changed my life.
Yeah.
Because when I looked at this and I saw my karma, and then I looked at my parents, and then I looked at, and I was like, oh, this is how I planned it, and this is why. And all of a sudden, so much of that trauma that I couldn't get rid of, that I wanted to, but couldn't.
Yeah.
That baggage, I just kept carrying, and all of a sudden I was like, but this is what I wanted, and this is what I needed, and this is what I wanted to experience. Yeah. So I can't be upset with anyone.
Sure.
And instantly like that, it just poof and went away.
So when you had your awakening that you had, for lack of a better term, a tremendous cross to bear in this lifetime, right? Do you have a glimpse into what your karma is choosing for your next life? Because we talked a little bit about that a couple of weeks ago over coffee.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I've never even thought about that. My next life. No, I don't know. I think a lot of it's going to have to do with what I can accomplish in this one. I mean, it is hard enough to deciphering all my karmic points with people in this lifetime that I'm entangled with, and understanding why. So I've met a few of my soulmates, and soulmates, honestly, to me, soulmates are a dime a dozen, and they're all assholes because they're meant to teach you a lesson. I mean, that's just the truth of it.
Interesting.
In my humble opinion.
I've never heard that perspective on soulmates. Usually, it's the common dynamic of soulmates is this is the person that shows up not necessarily to teach you a lesson, but to protect you, so to speak, to pull you out of that.
Well, I can tell you no one in this lifetime is scheduled to protect me or pull me out of anything, and that's been confirmed to me. Okay. So I think our soulmates play different roles, because before you come into each lifetime, you plan with them who they're going to be and what they're going to do. So you may be coming in to protect somebody. I'm coming in to do whatever, but my journey in this lifetime is not to be protected or rescued or whatever I may want as a female. you know, sure. Like, wouldn't it be nice to just not worry about this? Well, too bad. I'm gonna have to worry about all this, for the rest of my life. But my two soulmates for sure. I know for a fact, and my karma with each one is very different, and what they came in to do for me was very, very different. And I The first one was obviously my now ex-husband, and speaking of soulmates, him and I have done so many lifetimes together. It's just like the depth of it is like, I can't, there are no words to articulate the depth of the connection I have with his soul. We're not friends in this lifetime. Like, so,
okay.
You know what I mean? So this isn't like, oh, we're soulmates and they did it. It's nothing like that. Like a very realistic too. Like there's boundaries and, again, that could be a whole other conversation, but on a soul level, I know who he is to me.
Right.
I've looked into it extensively. I know him from that soul perspective. I know our past lives. I know what this lifetime was meant for. I have, on a soul level, I have conversations with him still. That I wouldn't even attempt or dream of in a physical sense, to converse with him. One of my other soulmates that I had a karmic connection with, the sole purpose of us coming together was for me to break the karmic pattern of us together.
Really?
Yes. And that was one of the most, this is somebody that I, again, have shared so many lifetimes with and cannot get away from this person. They're not healthy relationships.
Sure.
And it was the same in this lifetime.
Yeah.
But the magnetism is so hard. It's like, how do you even get away? I don't even know. Again, it's like I have a hard time articulating a lot of this because it's such a strong feeling. And I look at him and I see our past lives and I see who he is to me. And I see that he's family. Like I see the love, I see the connection, I see the possibilities. I can see all of it playing out. And my sole purpose is to walk away from this person and to cut the karmic, not just in this lifetime,
but for every life,
but for all lifetimes. Yeah. So again, we're all here working on very different things.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. Our soulmates, they come in for completely different reasons. And that's why you do have some people that can be together a lifetime.
Right.
And maybe that's what they're meant to do. And then, there are people that they're absolutely not meant to do that, and that's okay. And so for me, anyway, sorry, I can go on now, but go
So
ahead.
like my question, based on that dynamic, how do you come to grips, because that can be a very emotionally charged divergence when it comes to an end, right? Both, positively and negatively, depending on, what that person is, what you're designed to do together, right? What lesson is to be learned from that interaction. How do you come to grips with I consider it to be a principle now. How do you come to grips with the principle that not everybody is, like, this journey comes to an end at some point? Either we're going to see it to the end of this lifetime or, like tomorrow, that's it. We don't interact anymore. Like, how do you come to grips with that principle so that when it does end, there's closure and you don't dwell on it? Because based on what I get from how you've read my chart and what you're explaining about readings that you've had for yourself, if you don't learn it in this lifetime, you get to learn it again in the next one. So like, how do you get there in this lifetime? Like, how do you come full circle with that concept so that you can almost be deliberate about your interactions with people?
Right. That is such a good question. And I don't know that I have a black and white answer. For me, if I'm to look at my journey with my ex-husband, how did I know our journey was over in this lifetime? We were together for 17 years, by the way. So this wasn't like a 3-year relationship. You know what I mean? We built a company together. We have a child together. We had an entire lifetime together. I just knew. There was a moment came and I just knew, but it was very difficult for me to get to that because I also knew he was my soulmate. I also knew I was supposed to, but what I didn't realize back then is that just because he is all of those things doesn't mean that, in my mind, I was like, we only have one soulmate. That was like me back then, not knowing, we only have one soulmate. And, and he's the one, and I love him, and like all of that is true.
Yeah.
But so what? You know, I had to look inside myself. And again, this is me realizing I am so dead inside. I'm not even who I am anymore. Who am I?
Yeah.
When I left him, I was so disconnected from myself. And mind you, I can see things.
Yeah.
So I can see I'm here and I'm here.
Yeah.
And I am not one. And that was like it hurt me so bad to know that I was fractured as a person. Like, I was just not myself. But when you're living in it, it's hard. And so here's where I needed help.
Yeah.
So along the way of my journey with him, without getting into too many details, because, you know, I'll write a book someday. I don't want to give anyone heart attacks.
You heard it here first, guys.
I don't want to give anyone heart attacks. But along the way, I believe when I planned my life, I put in fail proofs. Like, you'll come in to help me. And if you can't do it, then you come in to help me. And if you can do it, then you come in to, you know. And it finally got to the point where there was an incident that happened in my life where it was like, this this relationship for what it was just needs to end. Yeah. Now, you know, we obviously still have a relationship. We have a child together, right? That relationship now looks very different. Sure. Our dynamic is 100% the same. Okay. 100% the same. Like, and this is what I found. Your dynamic with people never changes, no matter even if their relationship changes. Okay. So when we were together, he always pushed me in a good way. Yeah. Like pushed me. Like, he is like one of the main reasons I have what I have today. Like in physical, like in the sense that he literally built the company, you know, he wrote the code, he pushed me, he was like, you can do this, like he supported me. I mean, it was just, we had he was my bestest friend. Sure. Like, we had the kind of relationship that I don't know that many people achieve. Like, I can see you have that, but it's like not so, you don't just find that, right? Yeah. So we had that. I had that. Like, I know what that's like. But now, obviously, we don't, you know, we're not in a relationship like that, but he still pushes me. Yeah. And not, you know, in a different way, but I look at it, I'm like, it's all growth. The dynamic is exactly the same. Right. He still pushes me constantly. And I don't know, however it is in his mind, like, we're not dissecting that, but the way I choose to look at it is that this is our dynamic, and when he pushes me, it's growth. Yeah. Okay. Do you see what I mean? So I don't know when you decide that a relationship may be over with a soulmate. I feel like that's going to look very different for every individual based on how they planned their life. For me, being an intuitive, I woke up one day, and again, we're talking 17 years. So it's not like this was like, oh, poof, and it's over. Okay. Sure. Right. But I woke up one day and I'm like, I need to end it, and it needs to be done. Yeah. Wow. And it was painful. Sure. I wrote an entire blog on it. It's hard to articulate in words, but I wrote a blog post on it. It went viral. Apparently, a lot of people resonate with that. They Google. No, this is one of the biggest Google hits I get is how to end a 17-year relationship. Fuck. And that's the title of my blog is how I ended my 17-year relationship. Yeah. And literally, it gets so many hits. And I go through all the. You know, I went through the process. I tell people how it happened and what, you know, and it was extremely painful, but I don't know. It needed to be done. Yeah. Interesting. I think that if you listen to your intuition, it makes those decisions, tough as they may be, so much easier if you choose to listen to it. Because I think a lot of the block that we've been talking about has to do with just straight up denial. You know? That too. Yeah, when people are like, you know, that doesn't sound like me at all. And it's like, well, maybe it is, and that's why you're taking it so hard, right? Right. So I think that's a great place to end it. But, you know, where can everybody go, find you, support you, network with you? Like, where do we discover Gelie? Yeah, no, great question. So one of the easiest ways, and a lot of people are on Instagram these days. So on Instagram, I'm at Gelie25, which is Gelie 25. And then if they're looking to network and they want to meet other entrepreneurs, the website is networkingphoenix.com. Right? Phoenix is all spelled out. And then if they are interested in my soul chart work, again, they can find it through Instagram, or they can go to followgelie.com.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like I'm all these different identities.
Well, as a guy, that's so fitting. Follow Gelie.
Followgelie.com.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just came up with that, but that's my blog is on there as well.
Okay.
And my blog is not a lifestyle blog. I don't blog about raincorns, unicorns and rainbows. I just made up a word. I literally so the title of the blog is documenting my life pivot. And it picks up at the point when my ex calls me and says he wants out of the company. Not at the point of divorce, because that was all transactional.
Sure.
But when he called me and said I want out of the company, which was post breakup, that's when my world started to spin. Because now I was losing my technical co-founder.
Yes.
And it's much easier to find a husband than it is a technical co-founder. Not that I'm looking for a husband, but it's funny, but it's true.
Sure.
And so my world started to spin, and I started to write as a way to just
purge. Yeah.
And and I wasn't even posting the blog anywhere, and then I posted one post, and I'm telling you, went viral. I'd never seen anything like it. I thought, I actually wrote to WordPress support. I'm like, something is broken, because every time I kept hitting refresh, it was up 100. I'm like,
oh my God.
I'm like, it's not. I'm like, clearly 100 people aren't reading my blog right now, but they were.
Yeah. Well, Eugen, who just walked by here a second ago, he was talking about this dynamic that we have with community now. And I think your timing couldn't have been more perfect 12 years ago, in that because of we're in the information age and the internet, we've never been more connected and yet so isolated, right? And to use his words, the internet makes the case for Networking Phoenix and for 20%ers, because we can reach out and touch each other via cyberspace, but at the same time, how deep can those relationships truly become? So now, like in the physical world, there's a need for what we do. And I appreciate you for bringing that to the forefront and making that accessible for people, because that's so powerful and so needed. So thank you for that.
Thank you. That's what I do. That's what my chart tells me I should be doing, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
Well, keep following it, because it's working for you.
Yeah,
for sure. For all the 20%ers out there, make sure you get out there and support everything that Gelie has going on. Networkingphoenix.com, followgelie.com, and definitely she is a resource if you're in a position to discover, which I think no matter what phase of life you're in, we all are. And now you have a resource to peel back some of those layers and see exactly where you're at and what your trajectory really is. So thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you guys at the New Year Network in January. For more information, go to 20percenterscircle.com, and we'll see you at the New Year. Thanks.
Thank you.